Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whatever time zone you're living in, it's time for Sumud. All about humanity, so this right here for everyone. Uplift, amplify, empower everyone. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whatever time zone you're living in, it's time for Sumud.
On this episode of the Sumud podcast, we uplift, empower, and amplify Palestinian American and Muslim Bahia Amawi. You may remember her as a courageous Texas elementary school speech-language pathologist fired from her job because she refused to sign the anti-boycott, divestment, and sanctions law, which asked her to take an oath of solidarity with Israel. With the help of the Council on American Islamic Relations, she sued the state of Texas and won, which resulted in a change in the law and her return to work. Her story and that of two other plaintiffs were featured in the boycott produced by Just Vision, which shed light on the origins of the anti-BDS law. She is now at the forefront of activism, appearing on Al Jazeera and Democracy Now!, speaking at universities and conferences, and sharing the importance of taking a stand against injustices. A shout out to Alat Faithful Church for helping us set this interview up. If you haven't already, please subscribe to this podcast on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen. Follow us on Instagram, X, and Threads with the handle @SumudPod, or Facebook and LinkedIn @Sumud Podcast. Bahia, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's nice to meet you.
Pleasure to meet you as well. So I watched Boycott, and something struck me that I felt was interesting. A lot of activists go looking for a fight. They sort of roll up their sleeves and they want to fight. You're like, look, everybody, I just want to do my job. Can you not do this to me right now? I just want to earn a healthy living, take care of my kids, and have a good life. Is that accurate?
Well, I always consider myself a quiet activist. You know, I was involved in my community, in the forefront of, activities here locally in my mosques and the school setting and the community itself. And anything with protests for Palestine, I was always involved in, but never led any events. So this kind of pushed me in, and like I said, in the forefront and made me kind of, more, gave me more attention. It really was giving me a platform, which I really appreciate, and it's something that I've always have done was talked about Palestine all the time with colleagues, with friends, any opportunity I had, and because I never think there's a bad opportunity. There's always anytime I get a chance to talk about the conflict issue, what's happening on the ground, I take that opportunity to do it. And so this gave me a platform, which I was really grateful for.
Yeah, and it took a lot of courage because you really opened up your life for everybody to see and sort of, what kind of person you are and the foundation and principles of your life. I want to go back to when you received that contract from the schooling system and your initial reaction. And I ask you for this reason. I know a lot of people who teach and nobody ever looks at the contract. They just sign it, or they make sure the pay is right and then they sign it. What made you actually read it? Or is that just part of your character? I'm going to read everything. And then what was your initial reaction when you read it?
Mm-hmm. I'm very much tuned to detail. As a speech language pathologist, we have to be really specific with our goals. And so my job kind of makes me made me into the person I am in a way. And so when I got that, it was a brand new contract because usually I sign exactly the same duplicate every single year. Literally, it's identical, nothing different. But this year, after 2 weeks, I've already started work. I was given an addendum of around six pages of additional terminology and words and laws and so forth. Even my supervisor had no idea about it. She's like, I don't know what it is, what it says, but this was given to us and we're required to pass it on to all the contract employees. And so I said, okay, give me a week to look over because, it's a lot of legal jargon I'm not familiar with, so I'm not going to pretend I understand it. Because, it took a while to understand this kind of jargon and it's very small type and everything. So I'm going through it. Some of it seem to be very normal laws, regarding environment and discrimination and bias. And I turn to a page and all the way at the end, my eye just goes to the word Israel. As a Palestinian, we can see that word probably miles away. And literally, with all that legal jargon and small font, my eye went directly to that word Israel. And I was like, okay, maybe, I'm kind of hallucinating. That makes no sense because it was late at night too. And I had just put my kids to bed. And they were young at that time. And my husband was traveling, so it was like a long week. And so I'm like, okay, let me look over it again and look. And I'm looking, and I cannot believe it. I saw the word again, Israel, and it was for real this time. And so I screamed, actually, at the top of my lungs. So my kids who were upstairs came down, rushing down, like, what happened? What's going on? I'm like, do you guys see what I see? Is that? So I'm like, yeah, it is, Mom. What are you going to do about it? And so that was kind of my kids looking over. It was kind of a profound moment, because they're looking at me to see what I'm going to do, what direction I'm going to take. And that was going to mold them for their future as well. So it was really crucial to me that I did something. And I was planning to do something anyways, because I knew it would affect them in the future. As Palestinian Muslims grow up in the United States, this would have impacted them eventually, one way or another. And so that was the initial reaction.
Yeah. Well, Palestinian Muslims growing up in the United States and in Texas, which is a different ballgame, we'll talk about. So there is a trauma, right? I don't think a lot of people understand and appreciate when we see Israel as Palestinians, there is inherent trauma in there. Forget all of the politics, everything that's been done to us throughout all of these years, 76 plus years, is very difficult. Did you at all think, okay, I'm going to be stuck here, or I'm going to go back to them and say there's no way? Or did you feel like you were going to lose your job? How did you kind of process all of that?
Yeah. Well, I knew I would not go on with my work if I had signed it. I wouldn't consciously be able to handle the fact that I signed it. So I wouldn't have signed it at all, because I feel like I would have, betrayed my people, my family, because my family still is in the occupied territory. They're in the West Bank. So they're experiencing all the trauma that's happening on a daily basis in the West Bank. And so I could not betray my family, my people, and I couldn't be complicit. I didn't want to be complicit with everything that's happening. I would have been, a partner in this, and I could not handle that consciously. So I crossed it out, and I initialed, and I immediately messaged my supervisor, who I've known for a while. I mean, I've been working with the school district for a long time, and I was very good friends with my supervisor and everything. And I told her it's against my belief and against my constitutional right as an American citizen. And she understood, actually. She said, okay, let's try to go around it. She tried to help me, which I really appreciate. I have to say the school district was very amicable with us and tried to go around it, because I was the only Arabic bilingual speech-language pathologist in the whole school district, which was crucial. Bilingual speech therapists are extremely important in the school districts, because we do service a variety of different cultures and languages and so forth. And so it's required by us as speech-language pathologists to evaluate people, the students, in their home language to find out whether it's a difference or a disorder. It has to do with accent. Is it really just because they're learning the language, or really truly a disorder? So they really needed me anyways, So she said, I'm going to try to go around it. And so I went back to work and everything. And then 2 weeks later, she gives me a call. I know when she called me that something's wrong, because nobody calls, anymore. So when she called me, I'm like, okay, something's wrong. She goes, I'm sorry, Bahia. We tried to go around it, but they said, if you don't sign this part of the contract, you will not be able to go to work the next day. So literally, I lost my work overnight. And students lost an important service as well that is not available at all, in the whole school district. So it was really egregious in so many ways, and so many people really were impacted by the fact that I didn't sign this contract. But to me, I think the benefits outweighed the risks significantly. I wasn't worried about my job and income, and I'm grateful that, my husband already works, which is really wonderful. But to me, the benefits really outweighed the risks 100 times.
What made you go into speech pathology and as a profession? Because do you speak more than 2 languages? Is that accurate?
I do speak. I speak several languages, but not fluently anymore. So German was my first language, German, because I was born in Austria, in Vienna, Austria. And then I learned Arabic because, being at home with my parents. And then we moved to Palestine after that. So I grew up in multiple countries. I kind of lived the typical Palestinian life which encompassed moving from one country to another country to find a better life and to find an education, better education for us and so forth. So we traveled quite a bit, and we did learn several languages along the way. My parents themselves speak more than 4 languages. I spoke 3 languages at one point. I've lost the German now a little bit. I'm not fluent anymore. And of course, I learned Spanish in high school, and I learned Italian at some point. But those are not fluent anymore. So right now, I would say English and Arabic is the most strongest languages right now. I have English even more stronger than Arabic now, because I grew up. I went to school here in primary school and high school and so forth.
Well, you may need to help me with my Arabic, because everybody makes fun of me for it. So, and you could probably tell how I said your name too, most likely. You probably picked up on that. So when you got that message from your supervisor, and you basically, as you mentioned, you lost your job overnight, what was that initial feeling in your heart? Because because you mentioned yelling earlier. What was the feeling this time? And did you sort of say, you know what, I'm going to fight this, and here we go?
It was shock. I'd have to say I was shock and surprise, because, I never thought I would be impacted by a law here in the United States. Being that I grew up in the United States, I've been an American citizen for such a long time. I wasn't born here, but I became a citizen in the 80s, so it's been a while. And, I'm educated, I'm active in my community, I follow the laws and the rules, I volunteer, not just in my Muslim community, but in non-Muslim community as well. So I'm quite an active person in Austin area. And so I was never thought that I'd be impacted by this. You never think this is going to impact you or affect you. You always think, okay, people who are immigrants who don't have their citizenship, maybe something of that sort. So I guess it was really a lesson to me that it doesn't matter that your status, it doesn't matter your education, doesn't matter your position or anything. Really, anyone can be affected by this. And literally, actually, a lot of Americans are being impacted by this law, and many of them do not know it until they actually have to face it, which was the case with me, because this law was passed in the summer of 2018, before I began the school year. And I didn't realize it was passed until it impacted me and I came across it. But even for instance, survivors of Hurricane Harvey, they had to sign this clause in order to get money from FEMA. So students in colleges who were judging on debate team had to sign this clause before they can get paid by the state. So anyone that does any kind of contract or business with the state of Texas, being in colleges and schools or anything of that sort, or any state entities or funding, they had to sign this clause. So a lot of people were impacted because they're individuals. And that's something that we're able to change that, and no longer individuals were being impacted by this law after we.
So I want our listeners to, or who are going to listen or watch this, just to reiterate, after Hurricane Harvey, people who needed aid could not receive the aid unless they signed this pledge. Yep. I just want to make that absolutely clear.
It's just, I don't know how anyone can allow this to pass. It's just, it was just overwhelming to understand, how could this be passed? How could this law pass? It totally violates every part of the Constitution you can think of. The most important part, our right of free speech, our right to choose, our right to decide for ourselves, and it's just so egregious the fact that it's passed, and it really, everyone is impacted by this. And you don't have to be Muslim or Palestinian or Arab to be impacted by this law. This affects every single Texan, every American, because actually it's passed in more than, I think now, maybe 34 or 36 states. So if you look it up wherever you're at, probably it's in your state.
Yeah, that's scary. I just can't imagine the blindness or the coldness of individuals to say, sorry, you can't get aid. Even if you were impacted by Hurricane Harvey, you can't get the aid because you didn't sign this pledge. Imagine if we switched it to Russia or to China or to another country, right? The conversation would be different. And you said something where you didn't know it was a law, and many of us don't realize that it's a law. And it reminds me of the film that you were in, where I can't remember whatever representative his name was, where he said, yeah, I just basically kind of, agreed to it, and I had to go back and look at how I voted. But people were just rubber stamping it and supporting it without understanding it.
Yeah. Yeah, they just see the word Israel, and it's, as they say in the movie, they say, oh, it's a good law. It's a good bill. It supports Israel. That's it. That's all they need to know is the word Israel, and they sign it regardless, because they know they cannot go against Israel, So it's unfortunately, a lot of the representatives have not read it or even know it, because a lot of time they group these laws together into one kind of package or bill. You sign one, you sign all of them. I believe that year there was like 800 laws that were passed. I'm like, as a normal citizen who's busy with, we're kept busy with every day-to-day event and things with the healthcare and worrying about our school and our kids. They give us so much to worry about that, so we don't focus on these laws anymore. And I mean, literally, who would have time to go through 800 bills and see which ones were lost and which were passed and how they impact us? So it's they do it on purpose because they know no person is going to actually take on the task of doing this.
I just can't get over a representative not knowing that they voted for a law. And I mean, how, if they don't know it, these people who are representing us, how are we supposed to pay attention and catch it? That was very scary to me. It reminds me, there was a quote at the very beginning, and I hope I don't get this wrong, where the person said, again, I think he was a majority leader in Arkansas. I could be wrong. He said, the church is protected from the state, but the state isn't protected from the church. That threw me off because I thought there was this thing called separation of church and state.
Me too. Exactly. That's what I thought so too. But apparently the thing is, they can do whatever they want to because they know no one can change these laws unless you sue. And they do it on purpose. I mean, even when after I was impacted by this law because they were trying to amend it before I went to court, Excuse me. And so I was actually going to different representatives, Democrats, representatives, and so forth, and talking to them about the amended version because I wanted to vote against it. And so a lot of them were saying to me, the staffers were saying, they signed this. They know that no one's going to be able to do anything about it unless you sue, and no one sues because it's a long, lengthy process and it costs a lot of money. So they know they were breaking the Constitution, but there's nothing you can do about it unless you sue. And unfortunately, so they know what they're doing. They know this. So even if it breaks every law, it doesn't matter. They sign it, they pass it because you can't do anything about it unless you're impacted directly. And then you can sue. So.
It's just crazy. I mean, it's crazy in any state where your First Amendment gets taken away. But in Texas, especially Texas, I'm a little bit surprised about that one. I'm not going to lie.
Texas. Well, you've seen what's happening with UT Austin and Governor Abbott, and he went back on his whole free speech in college. Now, when it comes to Palestine, there's no free speech. It really depends on what you're talking about. When it comes to Palestine, we have no rights. You have no free speech. You have no constitutional right. Absolutely. You can't even assemble anymore. The right to assemble no longer exists. I've had friends of mine, students who were arrested just for standing there, and it's just, they're absolutely, all the laws are out the door when it comes to Palestine and pro-Palestinian activists. And that's what it really comes down to, But if you're talking about other issue, then that's a different story. Then they will be like, raising hell. Like, oh, that's our Constitution,
Yeah,
So.
and we're learning all the time. There's a disclaimer always
Absolutely.
that it's hidden.
Absolutely.
Yeah, except for
And
Palestine.
we know that, and that's why we have to. We have to be the ones who take a stand. We have to put this in the forefront. We have to bring attention to these issues, and so people are more educated about this. Because normal American citizens do not know this. They don't understand this is what's happening when it comes to Palestinian rights and self-determination and activism regarding Palestine. They think, oh, it's free speech for everybody, but it's not the case.
Yeah.
It really depends on the issue we're talking about. There's a double standard. We know that. So.
Yeah. The other thing I learned, two things, I hope I don't get it wrong, was Texas is one of Israel's largest trading partners, which
apparently, yeah.
Yeah.
We looked it up, and it was really, it's not much that they do trading with, but apparently it is. But I think China is still the number one.
Everything is bigger in Texas, right? Isn't that what they say?
But maybe the largest recipients are in Texas from Israel, as far as our governor goes and Congress and so forth. Maybe they're the largest recipients.
Right.
So I would put it in that perspective.
Yeah. And there was this group, I hope I don't get it wrong. You could tell me, you may not remember either, but the American Legislative Exchange Council.
Alex, yeah.
Alex, okay. And what they do is basically they create these laws, and in closed doors meetings, they leave certain components blank to where it just basically, I am in the state of, and I am the representative, and I sign. That is absurd to me. I was just, my mouth, nothing can shock me at this point, but that one shocked me a bit.
Yeah. Now, I'm really hoping people open their eyes to how policy runs in this government, in this country. It is not run by the people. The idea of it's by the people for the people is ludicrous.
Yeah.
It is so wrong, you know. And I really hope people see that there's people behind the scenes. They're doing all of the corruption, and it's legalized corruption. Unfortunately, that's how I call it. It's legalized corruption. They legalize this where people, you know, the money, the lobbyists, the ones that are really benefiting behind all this, the pharmaceutical companies, the, you know, corporations, and of course the Zionist organization. So all of these are the ones that are benefiting from all this stuff. And so of course the representatives are like, you know, we serve you, we obey and serve, and that's what they do.
Yeah. You said something powerful, something to the effect of, I'm not doing this for Palestinians or Israelis. I'm doing this for American values. And to me, that was powerful. A, you're in Texas, you're Palestinian, you're Muslim, you wear the hijab or the headscarf, yet you are the number one defender of the First Amendment.
Yeah. That blew me away, because actually they registered in my head later on that I am the face of free speech. And that just blew me away. I think that was so profound, because you don't expect, I mean, we're the ones that most attacked, right? The Palestinian American Muslim women, because, you know, they're always calling out women as being oppressed, Muslim women and so forth. But I thought that was really a profound thing, because here I am fighting for everybody's right in Texas. And, you know, and actually after the lawsuit became very public and I was on television constantly here locally in Austin and so forth, I had strangers come up to me and say, thank you for fighting for our rights. And that just threw me off. That just really what humbled me so much. I have people in my grocery store, which I go to all the time, so I'm very familiar. I mean, I really stand out. So,
Yeah.
So I had the produce guy say, I saw you and I just want to thank you. And people in the school district, after I returned back to work, janitors, people I don't know, because I don't have a specific school that I stay at. I kind of rotate and travel from school to school depending on where my students are at. And I had strangers come to me and hug me and say thank you. And I think that said a lot. It did. So that was really moving. It was really moving and touching to see that. And like you said, it's extremely profound that a Muslim American Palestinian woman was the one fighting for the Texans' first right of speech. That's
It gets better. And from what I watched, I think it was outside the courthouse where you had your kids practicing Taekwondo. And I'm like, wow, she is really, this is in Texas, outside the courthouse, practicing Taekwondo, or showing what they're capable of. I mean, as a parent, I would have just been so proud of that image. What was going through your kind of heart and mind there?
Yeah. Well, my kids are amazing. They're kind of funny, and so they're a really close relationship with each other, because I homeschooled my kids. So they had to really build a close relationship. We had a unique experience in our house, and so they actually do this everywhere, the Taekwondo. We were in a grocery store and they would have been in the aisle doing Taekwondo. Because, you know, when you're doing a sport, you tend to kind of, mentally, it's part of you, it's part of like everyday movements that you do. We were in Turkey one time and they were doing Taekwondo near one of the mosques, you know, and I was like, it's like they were constantly doing that. So I wasn't surprised they were doing that, but it's, they're amazing, and they were with me throughout the whole ordeal, you know, and they were very proud of their mom, and they learned a lot. And I think they grew a lot during that year, significantly. To them, they saw everything they've learned in history books come to life, you know, in real time. So it was very surreal for them to be experiencing going to the courts, sitting, watching their mom testify in front of a federal judge, you know, all these things they read about and learned about the Constitution. They had we had a renewed value for the Constitution. You know, I never really thought about it much. You know, I taught my kids about it, but again, I never think they can actually use this document to benefit you. And here I was using that to benefit me and advocate for my right. So it just, for them, it was a growing process. And from that, they changed significantly. They became themselves more outspoken, and they saw the benefit of taking a stand. You know, I've always taught them as they're growing up to advocate for themselves, but this made it kind of come to life. And ever since then, they really became different entirely.
I did start laughing when your husband said something to the effect of, "I am no longer their hero, their mom is," and I thought that was hilarious, just as a father.
Yeah, it is funny. But no, they're a hero as well. They look up to their dad significantly. He's a huge part of, our family, of course. And he was my rock. He was my rock throughout the whole time. And because a lot of times I was kind of absent during that whole year because I was doing a lot of, appearances and going to the Capitol, doing a lot of talking and, with the representatives and speaking and so forth and testifying for the Senate and the House. So it was a lot of involvement that I had to do in order to help to prepare for the amended version of the bill before it came to the floor of the House. And so I was, hardly there. And I used to homeschool the kids. Like I said, I homeschooled them. So he had to take over and fill in. And they were still young, so they couldn't stay home alone at that time. So he was my rock. He, we couldn't have done it without the whole family.
So I want to talk about CAIR a little bit and that experience and having them help you. But do any of your kids want to be lawyers at this point after what they saw you go through?
I don't think so. No, not them. None of them want to be lawyers at this moment. All of them are in IT,
Okay.
like following in their dad's footsteps. My oldest daughter is also in IT, but she's doing her master's and wants to do her doctorate so she can teach like me. So she wants to be a professor in college. But at the moment, no. But they're very active in school. They're active in the SJP and all these Palestine Solidarity Committee and MSA in college. And so there are 3 of them in college right now. So one is still in high school, but 3 in college. But they're very active in events and stuff like that. So they've been there at all the protests and events and so forth. And they don't shy away from talking about this. They don't shy away. I think they feel more confident and more stronger, and they see the importance of it. So which I'm really happy they do see that. It's priceless when your kids eventually, are comfortable in their own skin. And I think that's important. As Palestinian Americans, we kind of shunned before and hid away, and we try not to be visible. But I'm happy that my kids are confident in their skin and they're proud to be, Palestinian and Muslim. So
Yeah, inshallah, if clearly you're doing a great job in parenting. So
a lot of supplication. I'm not doing it alone. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah.
So with CAIR, did they reach out to you or did you reach out to them? Because I always wondered how that works.
Yeah. So that's a funny story, actually, because the week before, my boss had called me on the phone to tell me I no longer can return back to work. I was at a CAIR fundraiser in Austin. I was sitting on the table with my friend, and we were listening to Linda Sarsour, Our Old People. And she said something real profound that resonated with me, and I still remember it to this day. And she said, "You will never know when you will need CAIR." And so I turned to my friend and said, "I may need CAIR myself." And I was just joking with her because I really didn't think it was going to go to that extent. But it turned out that I did need CAIR. And amazingly, I never thought in a million years I would actually need to reach out to CAIR, because I always thought CAIR was for people with immigration problems, people with religious discrimination issues. And this was not a religious discrimination. This was a law. So I didn't know if I would be applicable to, reach out to them and for them to help me. But I actually called them, and I called a couple of other civil rights organizations as well, really well-known ones. But the other ones was a lengthy process, and they were like, you had to fill out a form, and it would take 4 to 6 weeks for them to get back to you, which is, a great time when you lost your job. It's a huge amount of time you're dealing with. But when I called CAIR, they answered the phone right away. And then within like a couple of days, I was already talking with the lawyers on the phone from the national organization. And that's how it began from there. And I really value their work. I think they're indispensable, and they're such an important organization for us, and especially our kids here in the United States. So I totally, always praise them for their work, and I've always supported them even before any issues came up. From the get-go when they first started. It was something that we had always been attending their fundraisers and supporting them financially, and I never thought in my life I would need to actually use them. But I was grateful that they were available for me.
So for people who are listening who may have to work with CAIR or reach out, I don't know if you heard about, for example, those Delta employees. Did you read about that?
I didn't know. No,
Yeah. So
maybe if you mention something about it, maybe I'll
yeah.
you.
So basically, I don't know when this is going to air necessarily. So, but
Yeah.
two Delta employees were wearing a Palestinian pin.
Oh, I did not
And
know. No,
yep,
yeah.
and a passenger made a complaint basically on Twitter or X and said that they're wearing Hamas badges. You probably heard about the individual in Meta. I don't know if you heard about him, but he's suing as well. So what's the process look like,
Mhm.
or what advice do you have?
Yeah. Yeah, they do all the work for you. People always say they commend me and they say, "Oh, I think you're our hero. You did an amazing job." And I'm like, I really didn't do anything except make a phone call. Literally, that's all I did was make a phone call, and CARE took care of everything. They took care of the legal work, the filing, and even training me, everything. They were with me in every step of the way. The media appearances, when I was going to the representatives to talk with them, they sent someone to help me out and train me how to talk with them. So they were literally in every step of the stage that I was going through. There wasn't a moment that I felt like I was alone, and they were not pushy. They don't make you want to do something that you're not comfortable with. They knew I'm a novice. Obviously, I'm not an activist or anything, and I'm just a regular, housewife and working mom and balancing life and work. So they didn't push me too much, and they made sure I was within my comfort zone. So they were really amazing to work with. I have to say, there was not a moment that I felt pressured or like, okay, this is beyond my task. They took care of everything. So that's it really, my advice is to make that call and go through with it, because they're available and they do it for free. And that's the thing. It's like I had 4 lawyers that were assigned to me, and no way I could have afforded that. No way.
So CARE cares, just to make a cheesy joke.
They do. They took CARE takes care of you. If they're listening, they can change their slogan. CARE takes care of you.
Did you get to meet
Yeah,
Nihad at all?
I
The
did. I met Nihad and the top lawyers, and I was invited afterwards to their big fundraiser in DC, and it was really really honored to be there and meet everybody behind the scene, because Nihad has been, of course, the face behind CARE, and we've always followed him along, because, like I said, we supported him from the get go. And so it was nice to finally meet him and I met him several times. So yeah, he's an amazing person. As you read about him, as you see him on TV, he's exactly the same person in real life.
Yeah, no, great. I believe it for sure. And what did the process look like with the courts and showing up to court? And I know you mentioned you had to do these media blitzes as well, but
Yeah.
so let's ask it this way. What was the timeline from calling CARE to getting a resolution?
Yeah. So when it was a whole year process, and this was expedited. So I was lucky, because most people would take up to 4 years to resolve a lawsuit and be able to get your day in court. So mine, because it was First Amendment issue, was expedited. And a year. So I was surprised the year is considered expedited. I'm not someone who understands the legal, you know, rules and then all the stuff that goes around with it. But I was like, wow, that's expedited. That's not in my term, expedited, but okay, we'll go with that. But it's really with CARE. It started out with their lawyers first getting all the information from me, previous timesheets and salaries and all this stuff, and what I had and my earnings. So it was a lot of detailed information. They get from you the whole story, and they write it down for you, then they send it back to you to edit it, and then and again, back and forth to make sure all the information is correct and accurate, and there's nothing that's flawed within the legal documents. And then they had interviews with the Intercept. I think that was the first one that really made it. Brought attention to my lawsuit was the interview with the Intercept. I don't know if you got to see that or not, but it was a video and an article as well from the Intercept, and kudos to them. They did an amazing job, and I think that's what really put it in the forefront after the Intercept, because after that day, I was getting a bunch of messages and my phone was off the hook, and I was like, "What is going on?" Because I do not follow social media. I never did then, and I'm a little bit. I do it more now, but I'm still not a big fan of social media. I like my solace. I like my quiet, so I was that day was like crazy. My phone was ringing off the hook, and I was like, "What is going on?" And everybody saw the Intercept article and the video, and that's what really made it put in the forefront. And after that, there was a lot of um, you know. Uh, basically a lot of tit for tat with the lawyers. They could go back and forth. I couldn't tell you exactly, but they would tell me, okay, we had this written sent by them. You have to look at it. And they sent this, and now you look at it. So it was kind of back and forth between the lawyers of the state and CAIR until we actually had our day in court in April. So we started in August, and then April was when we had our day in court. And in between, we had a lot of, again, media appearances and interviews. We went to speak with a lot of representatives, but got, to prevent them from signing the amended version, which we, of course, were not successful. But, I expected that. But at least we made our voices heard. And I think that's important, is regardless of the outcome, you should use your voice and make sure that you are heard. Because it may reach somebody. It may reach one person. And I think if you reach one person, that's success to me, Yeah. And so, and actually, this is the first time that after we spoke with many of the representatives, when it came up to the vote for the amended version of the law, which they would change who was impacted from the individuals to companies, I think maybe 30 of them had abstained. I didn't vote yes, didn't vote no, but abstained, which is a step forward, which we know means nothing really abstaining. Basically, they're giving their vote away, but at least it's something. They're like, and they actually had a dialogue on the floor. It was nice watching it. You can actually still watch the hearing, when they were when the amended version was on the floor, and they were going back and forth about this law, and so it was kind of interesting to watch that and see. But it made conversation. And that's what I wanted out of this too. I didn't really care about the outcome as much, because I was not in my control, but I did want this to be out there in conversation, and people talk about this and bring attention to this law, and why is Israel involved in our school district? Why is it a foreign country, telling our teachers what to do and what to buy? And that's what I really wanted from this.
Yeah. Did you actually have to speak in court?
I did. So I did testify. So I did, which was actually scary. It was weird to be sworn in and testify. And I was worried about the questions from the state, and we practiced as well. Again, they prepared me for that, and we practiced in advance. Like, okay, if they ask you this, what are you going to say here? What are you so, and they're like, and I asked them, what if they ask me this question? What are you guys going to do? I said, we will jump in and all this stuff. But it was actually very, it wasn't hostile. Alhamdulillah, I was not hostile at all. It was actually, the state barely asked me any questions. So he didn't have much of a case. He didn't really have much of a case. But it was nice about the court. And I think it was really humbling to see the room was filled to the max. It was standing room only. And that really threw me off. I was floored by the fact that everybody showed up, my whole community, people I don't know, that came to, support me, people from the school district. So it was really, really humbling. And I was just floored by the fact that the room was packed to the point where the judge had to pause the hearing and have people come sit in the jury section, because there's no jury, but people were standing out the door. And so it was really amazing sight. And I still get goosebumps just thinking about that day and how what a wonderful day that was to have the whole community come out.
Just curious, how long were you on the stand?
Maybe I would say 5 to 10 minutes, not very long. I think 5. I mean, they were just asking me questions about the process, what happened, when I saw the formality of the whole thing, like when I saw the paperwork and what I do as a living, what my job, and if my job, because I'm like my individual company. So my company, is it part of me? Is it me, myself, as a person at home as well? So, but yes, there's no differentiation between Bahia Amawi and Bahia speech therapist, So they're asking questions of that sort. But it was, alhamdulillah, it was really, smooth. It went real smoothly, and I'm grateful for it, because that was a very nerve-wracking point. It definitely was.
Yeah, I mean, if that were to happen today, the first question they would ask you on the stand is, do you condemn Hamas, right?
Yeah. Yes, definitely, that would be the question. And actually, we talked about that day too. And that's what they would have stood up and rebutted and said, this is, what's the word they use? Objection, Your Honor, right? They said we would have objected because it had nothing to do with my job and nothing to do with that. I'm not a representative of Hamas. I don't speak for Hamas. Hamas doesn't speak for me. So that would have been the case that they would have had responded with.
Yeah, great. And where were you when you heard that you won?
Oh yeah, that was fun. You saw that in the movie. I'm sure you did.
I know.
Right? So yeah, I was driving. So I was driving my kids to the Taekwondo tournament because obviously my kids do Taekwondo. So I was driving them to, and I actually missed the Taekwondo tournament because I was on the phone the whole time too. So I was driving the Taekwondo tournament and my phone kept ringing and ringing and buzzing and buzzing. And I don't answer the phone. I'm driving. Of course, I'm a person that again follows rules. I'm too careful. Or for my kids always think, Mom, you're just too careful. You're too cautious. You gotta let loose, Mom. But so I don't answer the phone. And so when eventually I dropped them off, I pulled off to the side and parked, and I looked at my phone, and that's when I saw the message, and I spoke to my lawyers. And it was I was really extremely joyful. I couldn't believe it. So even I told my kids, and they saw my face, like, what's happening? What's wrong? And then I told them what happened, and they were ecstatic. And after that, I was on the phone constantly with each different lawyer and so forth, and my husband, and so I missed the whole tournament. And they were not happy about that, but they got over it.
It's okay. I am sure they'd forgive you for this one.
Yeah, they did. They
Mm.
did.
Did you receive any type of back pay, if you don't mind me asking? Or
No, we tried, but we did not. I mean, the federal judge did grant us back pay, but then they appealed. The state appealed, and we lost in the appeal. So yeah,
how does that even make any sense? You didn't have an opportunity to earn. How could
I
they?
know. Yeah, yeah. Well, the federal judge was in our favor, but when we went to the appeals court, the fifth district court is merely Republican. So.
Mm,
You
yeah,
know, and so that was unfortunately we got a Republican group, and it was not going to go well. So,
got it.
but alhamdulillah, it is what it is. We could do we do what you can do, and beyond that, it's beyond our capabilities. There's nothing else can do.
So did you go back to work like the very next day,
Yeah.
or
So I got the contract the next day immediately because I mean, like I said, the lawyers from the school district was with us that day in court, and they said the minute you win this, we're going to issue you a new contract, and that's exactly what they did. But the school year was over, so I didn't get to work. So the
Mm.
school year was over, and so I missed out on the whole year. But I still signed it. It was kind of ceremonial in a way. So we signed it, and with that, the anti-BDS law.
Yeah, you should frame the before and the after contract. The
Good
one with
idea.
yeah, I think that'd be pretty cool.
That is a good idea, actually. I still have it. So I keep everything. Literally, just in case they do, a 180 and they change everything back again, because I always have this fear that now they're going to do everything with everything's happening. Because they have, they can do whatever they want to, these representatives in Congress. And I mean, they can. I mean, I know that Marco Rubio is trying to get the federal one passed. The anti-BDS law, and penalize people up to 10 years in prison or $100,000 fine, which is ridiculous, extremely ridiculous. But he's still at it. He failed the first time and he's still at it. And I'm just like holding on to my job, even though I'm nearing like ending retirement and stuff, but I'm still like working just for that reason, just in case, just in case.
Well, hey, he's making a lot of money out of APAC. So
Yeah.
that's
They work hard for them. They do work hard. Yep.
Yeah, for sure.
I know.
So how did because you mentioned the courthouse, the community was
Mm.
around you. How was the aftermath when you like the first time you went to the mosque, for example? Or I saw some of it in the video,
Yeah.
but I just want to kind of let the listeners hear this too.
Yeah, I really recommend everyone watching the movie. The movie's amazing. It highlights more than just me. Of course, talks about the other plaintiffs who are equally important in this, and they're entirely diverse and different than I am. But yeah, the community was with me throughout the whole year because actually it wasn't just after we won the lawsuit that the community was really, supportive or coming out to meet me and congratulate me. But actually from the beginning, when everybody heard about what happened, and I was fired because a lot of the community members actually I service their kids, believe it or not, because I am the only Arabic bilingual speech therapist. So a lot of their kids went through me, So it's kind of ironic in a way. So they understood like what are you talking about, and they knew the importance of having someone who looks like them and to service their kids because it does make the kids feel more comfortable and culturally they understand the religion, better, and regarding to treatment as well. But from the beginning, even every mosque would do the Friday prayer. They would do the lecture about it. they would actually do the lecture about what happened to me and the importance of going out to support me, and we need to stand with a sister, and on this day this will be this event happening, on this day this will be happening. And so it was really from the beginning initial state of what happened. They were supporting me all this way.
Great. The other side of it, obviously, the next question would be: were you harassed? Were you
Mhm.
bullied by anybody when you went to the
Yeah.
grocery store, or how did
Yeah.
that work?
Like I said, one thing, I don't follow social media much. So if there was anything on social media, I did not catch it. So, which is good. So if there was something out there, I missed it, which is a good thing. But as far as in public, no, it was really all supportive praise. I had one lady, an older lady, says, "I don't agree with your opinion regarding Israel and Palestine, but I do support you on your stand of free speech." So that's how they really, really people, regardless of their opinion of the occupation, they still supported the fact that I was fighting for free speech, because that is something relatable to everybody. Everybody appreciates that law we have here in the United States, and it's valued entirely because a lot of countries don't have it. So that's one thing that was, I think, that was relatable and unified everybody regarding my issue.
Yeah. Hey, let me ask you, because I don't know Texas very well. You were in Austin. Had you been
Mhm.
in a different location where maybe it's not as inclusive, I guess is the word for this? Would it have been different? Would you have been treated different by the community? Not our community, obviously, but
Yeah.
the rest?
It's a good question. I don't know how other cities would have, um, treated me regarding this. I'm not sure how. But again, I think the fact is it has to do with First Amendment, and that is something that is extremely important to all Americans. I don't think they would have had a different outcome regarding the treatment and how they addressed what's happening. I actually had even presents. People dropped off presents at my door, which was kind of scary. So we wouldn't open them right away. We'd open them in the garage just in case.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
Um, yeah, we had a lot of mail come in supportive, really all supportive mail, not one negative mail. So then there were a lot of them outside of town, not from Austin. So that would show you that's a reflection of what people think outside of Austin as well. In that they were very supportive in that manner, because I had mail from outside of Texas, from New York, from fellow speech therapists. I had some from even Australia that sent me mail. So we had a lot of mail come in. It's just all support. Not one was negative. So I was really grateful.
And do you know if there's any threat of the law coming back to life in any way, or any, how they try to repackage it sometimes? Are you
Right.
aware of that?
Again, just the federal one is what I'm aware of, which is really scary. That one is really, it's even worse than the local one that we had here in Texas and most states have. But I wouldn't put it past them. I would not put it past them, especially with everything going on now, and they're claiming anti-Semitism for everything. So I would not put it past them and try to label this as anti-Semitic, and they tried to label me anti-Semitic many times, but how could they when I'm a Semite myself? So that shows their ignorance, right? But I wouldn't put it past them.
Yeah. So what's your advice for the listeners? Let's just say maybe the young college students are entering the
Mhm.
workforce, or people that are already entering the workforce. Because as we mentioned earlier, a lot of them are facing harassment.
Yeah.
A lot of them are what we call in DE&I covering. They're covering that they're Palestinian, or they're adjusting either, maybe they would usually wear a flag, maybe they're not going to wear that anymore. What's your advice for them?
Yeah. My advice for them is to always take a stand. Do not hide behind your values and what your perspective is, because eventually it's going to come hurt you even more. Taking a stand, take risks. It takes risks. We know that. No matter what your stand is, especially about pro-Palestinian issues and advocacy for Palestine, it is a risk. I'm not going to hide that. I'm not going to lie to anybody. It is a risk you're going to take, but it's definitely a risk that is beneficial and eventually will help you in the long run. It will help the next generation in the long run. And that's what it is. And to me, I don't worry about job, security, because to me, when door closes, another door opens.
Right.
Look, for instance, one of the cases in the movie, Alan, he's the editor of the Arkansas. newspaper. So he lost actually his case at the end. He did lose at the higher courts, and so he lost the advertisement from the state. So he lost a lot of money from the state. But in return, people learned about his story, and he had more people advertise in his newspaper, more than that. It was nice. It was suffice enough to compensate for the losing the state. So I do believe that, once a door closed, another one opens. So I don't worry about that, because I'm a person of faith, and I do believe sustenance and provisions come from God. So you have to really do the right thing. That's my suggestion. Do the right thing. Do what makes you feel, comfortable in your heart. And if your heart tells you it's not right, and I'm not feeling good about this, then most likely that is not the way to go. So definitely do what you feel comfortable, what you think is right, and don't worry about the outcome, because there are other opportunities. Other things will come out of it. I never thought in a million years that I would be doing speaking engagements, or I would be attending, traveling and doing conferences and so forth. There's always something that comes out of everything. So I wouldn't worry about security, job security, and so forth. And I'm so proud of the youth, so proud of them. They have outdone us. I thought we were, I thought our generation was the one who's making the change, but they have outdone us. You really have. I think we started the spark, but they are just really have ignited the whole flame. They ignited it entirely. And I'm just so proud of them. I always tell my kids, that you guys are the future. Hopefully you guys will see a free Palestine. You will get to live into it. Your kids will not know what occupation means and what it is to live under an occupation. Because we grew up under occupation. We are children of occupation. That's all I knew was occupation. I didn't even know what it means to have your own country or to be in your own country. I was always a foreigner, always someone that didn't fit in and felt like, okay, I stand out, or I'm not from this country. So to them, I think what they're doing is amazing. And even for non-Arabs, the non-Muslims, the people of the Jewish faith who are in solidarity with us, because they realize this is just as important to them as important to us, because this means they can freely live. They can freely live as well in Palestine, and it's for everybody. And so I'm just so proud of the youth, and I really hope they continue as the fall semester starts again. And they persevere, and because that's where the change is going to be. It's going to be in the colleges. It's going to be.
Yeah, it's going to be even harder too, because the administrations are going to be ready for it, right? And
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, they're going to be bullied even more.
I think once the corporations start to shift, once they start to change their gear, that's when we'll see a huge change. Because now the corporations are just not going in the direction of boycotting and distancing themselves from Israel. I mean, you see it here and there, little by little, like Puma pulled out, even though they claim because the contract ended. But yeah, okay. Things of that sort. You see little ones, bits and pieces of, and you see watermelon everywhere now. Even Starbucks has a watermelon cup, little bits and pieces of it. It's kind of, you can see the puzzle forming in a way. That's how I see it. It's like little pieces of it. But I think the more the youth really continue with their stand and their fight and demand for boycott, it will eventually happen. It will. They're going to have to come and eventually listen to the youth.
Have you visited Palestine before? Or
I have. I spent a lot of years there. So after I was born in Austria, in Vienna, Austria. We moved back to Palestine because it was a rule saying that if you don't come back and apply for new paperwork, they were not able to return back to Palestine and live there. So my parents, of course, left everything, their job and everything in Austria, and they went back to complete this form in order to be able to visit and live in Palestine. And I thought it would take maybe a couple of weeks, but it ended up taking 5 years. So we ended up staying in Palestine for 5 years more. And then my brother was born there even. And after that, we traveled again somewhere else. But I lived there. And after that, we spent every summer almost in Palestine. So I grew up in Palestine, I would say. My best years were there. Like, I loved the summers there. We looked forward to it. We were there during all the intifadas, both of them. So we've seen a lot. We've seen a lot and experienced ourselves a lot. My brother, when he was a teenager, was always pulled off getting arrested, but my dad would get it in the soldiers' faces and he would like, no, you're not taking him. And it's just because he looked a certain image, because once you're a teenage boy and a Palestinian, you're automatically taken for doing nothing, you know? I remember we had to hide him at one time under the mattress because they were doing, they came into the houses and looking for youth. And so we experienced a lot. We were under gunfire a few times, and we had to, because they came into our village. And so we've experienced a lot of it, but not to this degree what they're going through right now, nothing compared to right now. That was all very minimal to what's happening now in the West Bank. And of course, Gaza is above as anyone ever experienced in their whole life.
Yeah. Well, I want to repeat again, this is fascinating. You're born in Austria, a Palestinian born in Austria. You come to Texas, Muslim, headscarf, and again, you represent the First Amendment. I think that is the coolest thing. You're an absolute trailblazer, mashallah. And so we really do appreciate it. I just got 2 questions for you, though, two last questions. If you could have done anything different throughout this whole process, what would it have been?
That's a good question. I don't think I would do anything different. I really don't think so. What I did, I would repeat it again in a heartbeat. It was an instant feeling like, okay, we're doing something about this. I'm not going to let this go. And so I would do the same thing all over again. Like I said, I wasn't worried about the outcome. I was worried more about my own, action, what I'm going to do, and so to me, that was the most important thing, is me taking action, me taking a stand, and making sure this is head news, like forefront news, and making sure people learn about this topic. Because I always spoke about Palestine on one basis with people, individuals, but this was an opportunity for me to do something bigger. And amazingly, whenever you see the confrontations and the violence in occupied Palestine, I always say, I wish I could be doing something. I'm sure you feel that too. Like, I wish I could do more. I wish I could physically do something. And God gave me this on my plate, and I couldn't say no. So this was my way of getting in. And so I was grateful. This was actually the opportunity for me to participate and do something. So I would definitely take it on with a heartbeat again.
Oh, and we appreciate you being on here too, because obviously this was inspired for Palestine.
Thank you.
Or by Palestine. All right. I have one last question that is the most serious and most important question out of this whole interview, okay? Because my wife and I were debating. In the movie, you were doing something with a green, I believe, vegetable. And she said it was mint. I said it was mlchia. Could you tell us what it is?
Both of you are wrong. It was za'atar.
Za'atar, was it?
Za'atar, yes. So za'atar. I have a huge za'atar bush in my backyard. And so my kids used to, this is something I grew up on, because I spent a lot of time the summers in Palestine. All we did do is pick mluchia leaves. And we picked za'atar leaves and we dried them. So this is like something I wanted to bring to my kids, and I was breaking up the snowbar command also, the snowbar, that was a thing in the summer. We prepared all the dishes for the winter and all the stuff. So I remember my grandparents, they would give us all these tasks to do. And we actually enjoyed it. It was enjoyable. And it was a social at the time. It was a time for a social gathering. The whole family would gather and pick the mluchia, pick the za'atar. Everybody participates. It was a time of social gathering for everybody. And so I always had my kids participate in that. And so we enjoyed it. And that was za'atar. I still have it. I freeze it and I use it when I make the cross za'atar with the dough. Or I use it for medicinal purposes as well. It's good for cough. If you have a cough, it's wonderful for coughs. I just brew some and put in hot water and drink it. And it's wonderful for coughs. So it has a lot of benefits. And so, yeah, if you ever come over, I'll give you some.
Yeah, we're going to visit Austin pretty soon, hopefully, too.
Yeah.
I feel like I failed my culture not knowing it's za'atar. Because just so you know, anytime somebody would go into Palestine, they'd say, "What do you want?" My answer is always bring za'atar back. I don't care about anything else.
Yeah.
So I feel like I failed that one.
So that's a za'atar leaves. The process of making a za'atar, I don't know, but that involves more spices and sesame and sumac and all the stuff. We have family friends that actually do send the za'atar from our village, and they make it fresh and stuff. But yeah, that was a different process. But the leaves itself, I don't know if you ever had the cross za'atar with the big dough and stuff. So that's, But it's funny thing, during the movie, a lot of people commented from after the Intercept video, like, because I was making the za'atar manaqish. The manaqish you saw with the dough, and I sprinkled it. The sprinkle, like they're like, no, people like can't believe that I did it that way. I was cheating. They also, I was cheating. I'm not making it from real dough. Make homemade dough. So it was funny. That was the biggest comments of negative backlash I saw was from making the manaqish. So that was hilarious. The kids laughed about that, and my family thought it was funny. And that was the biggest comment. Most Arabs were like, I can't believe she's doing that. That is a disgrace. So.
You can't mess with our food.
No, you cannot. Although I do mine, I do cheat. I do make my American version. I do.
That's okay.
It's hard when you're balancing so much, in the house. So I do like even my men's stuff. I do it American / Palestinian, but it tastes really wonderful. You wouldn't know it.
Absolutely. No, we're gonna have to visit and
Yes.
try that out.
Ahlan wa sahlan.
I have a request for you. Any
Yes.
chance you would put a book together about this experience?
A
And
book? Well, I never thought about that. Never thought about that. I'm working on other projects now. I'm working on other projects, other teams and stuff. So, but writing something of a book, no, I'm doing writing, but not a book. But never thought about that. No, a movie's good. Isn't a movie enough?
the movie is great, but I think just your words only in the book and your experience and what you witnessed and the whole story, I think would be fascinating, and generations to come will be able to read it, right? So
I'm hoping generations to come will learn about it. I am in the Arabic Museum in Michigan, so I did make it there, it's very fascinating. I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
I went to visit. Actually, it's really very educational. I had no idea all the Arabs that were here in America that did so much. You never knew that, like Hagar, the suits. Hagar, have you heard of the men's suits? He's Palestinian from Jaffa. I was like, really? Get out. So it was like fascinating because he came in 1918 and he became a seamstress, and here we are. And I buy them for my son and my husband. I was like, wow. So I had no idea.
yeah, there are a lot of Palestinians out there, and now hopefully they start speaking up, especially those individuals with some sort of
Yes.
power or authority. So
Yes. Well, we see the boycott being very strong now. So definitely the boycott movement has become very strong, and it's become finally trending, which is that's, we know, key. When it's trending, that's when it becomes successful, inshallah.
inshallah. I can't express enough how much I appreciate you taking the time to
Thank
sit with
you.
me here and meet and chat. I really do appreciate it. Again, much respect to you. You are a trailblazer. And
you
I'll
so
look
much.
forward to that future book that you're going to come.
Yeah, I will make sure to tell you. I want to encourage the audience to please watch Boycott by Just Vision. It's available for free. Just Vision made all its movies available for free so people can learn about the situation, what's happening on the ground. So all praise to them. And so it's on justvision.org. It's available for free. Please watch it and pass it along.
And we'll add it to the description
Thank you.
of the podcast. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It was nice meeting you, Ed.
Thank you.
And take care.
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whatever time zone you're living in, it's time for Sumud. All about humanity, so this right here for everyone. Uplift, amplify, empower everyone. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whatever time zone you're living in, it's time for Sumud. Listen, stay tuned, cause it's time for Sumud.